We have our other host down here, Kevin, and over there is Sean. And our special guest today is Field of the Dead, right over here.
My favorite card.
So, hot topic this week.
Yep.
Should Field of the Dead get banned / will it get banned? Because today Wizards announced that there's going to be a ban announcement on the 23rd for historic only. And I think we all know it's going to be Field of the Dead. I don't know what else it could be, but we'll discuss it and see what we think. But just to start off with, we'll just what makes Field of the Dead so good, guys? Why is it so good and historic?
Well, I mean, my thoughts on it, right? It's two things, right? It's that obviously in historic where there's not a lot of super viable like late game engines for control, you just can't beat Field of the Dead because you're just losing to infinite value. And then also the fact that there's so many good ramp cards in the format that kind of just leads to the way of like, hey, I have 7 lands with different names and now there's not a single bad draw on my deck. It's like, yeah, I can draw an island or I can draw an Hour of Promise. Either way, I'm going to make at least 2/2, if not more. And control matchups just can't deal with that because once you get it established online, it's just very hard to beat. And then just the fact that obviously with all of like, the scape shift type decks where like you get multiple triggers from them and seeing each other enter the battlefield at the same time, so you can have a Field of the Dead on the battlefield, Hour of Promise, get 2 more Field of the Deads and gets 6 triggers. It's just hard to deal with. And the only the decks that do well against it are hyper aggro decks, right? And
decks that can combo off very fast too,
and decks that can combo quickly. But the thing is, like, especially with the Sultai version of the field deck, you have access to Thoughtseize now in the format to kind of slow those decks down and buy you enough time. Because if you think about it, like, the field decks aren't doing anything on turn 1 anyway, ever.
Right.
So now that you can play discard spell on turn 1, it just kind of makes it just seems like it's just far and above the power level of the rest of the format. Do I think it should be banned? I don't know. Do I think it should be suspended? 100%. I think, with the amount of sets that have kind of come into the format, in short succession with all the anthology sets, Jumpstart, and now Amonkhet Remastered, and then, this deck and then sack decks are like the ever-present in the format, and then you have like Mono Blue Tempo, obviously, but it's not at the same power level.
Really quick, what is the difference between a banned card and a suspended card right now? Because to me, it just seems like another fancy word for ban.
I mean, it's just basically, in my personal view, it's just Wizards not letting us have our wild cards. But obviously,
put them in limbo.
Obviously, like we were talking about right before the podcast, like Field was suspended for like 4 months in historic. It was suspended in December of 2019, and it got unsuspended in March. So I'd rather see it, just kind of like how Temur Rec and Teferi were banned, or not banned, suspended in historic, and you kind of get to see how the metagame changes, right? But the thing is, like, you suspended those cards out of the format, and then you add Amonkhet Remastered in, which is a huge set with all these new tools, and so you really don't see how decks would have fared against Temur Rec and Teferi with all these new tools and stuff. And I think it's at this point seems, with Amonkhet Remastered being out for like a week.
Yeah, a little over.
It seems like I think their Field of the Dead is very beatable. Like, you can beat the deck, but it just kind of
all it requires is perfect play and good fucking draw.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that like I don't know, it's just kind of it's kind of like Teferi-esque, right? It's like it's just not fun
Yeah.
because you can't do anything, and the only thing you
Yeah.
can do is obviously if you're not playing a super aggressive deck, the only thing you can do is play sideboard cards like Virulent Plague and Blood Sun and Alpine Moon and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, it's fine to like have to, you know, it's kind of like how Modern was when like Hogak was in the format, right? It's like, yeah, I think it's fine that everybody should run like maybe 2 pieces of Graveyard Hate in their sideboards, just generally speaking in Modern. But when every single deck needs to run 4 of Leyline of the Voids just to have a chance,
And even then, there's still Hogak still winning through that sideboard.
yeah, well, Hogak is a whole different story, right?
Yeah, that's a
Sure.
totally different ballgame.
Hogak was arguably one of the most broken decks.
But I mean, like,
Yeah, and I think
go ahead.
no, I was just going to build upon what Kevin was saying, talking about the sideboard cards a little bit. So the ones that I think hold the most viability to be played in general, talking mana cost and the effect that they provide, are Alpine Moon, Blood Sun, and was it Virulent Plague? The -2/-2.
Yeah.
The problem with Blood Moon and Alpine Moon, in my opinion, currently no no deck that currently in the meta that's really playing red wants to be playing those cards.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
if you're red,
playing,
you're burning them.
Yeah, if you're red or you're Rakdos Sack, you're looking to kill them before they get their 7th type of land out anyway, or close.
Mhm.
So like that's pretty much useless. So unless some sort of like Jeskai control or Teamer deck or something like that comes to the forefront, or Jund maybe.
One list that I did see that was somewhat viable for Alpine Moon was the new like Rakdos like self mill deck with like Pyromancer, Stitcher Supplier, because like if you run Alpine Moon on the sideboard, if you mill that, you're okay with that because you run Luris, so it's basically digging for an Alpine Moon. You just play Luris and then you slam Alpine Moon. Yep.
Right, and that's fair too because, yeah, you're not really losing value off having it in your deck at that point.
But I think
but
I
if you're
think that
putting in
matchup's I think like that matchup's already fine for like that deck though. It's the
that,
thing.
yeah. And like now with the addition of, so as Kevin was saying, like these new tools from Amonkhet Remastered, change this even more in the sense that like now you have these Sultai field decks that came out, where it's like, great, now I can shock myself on turn 1, Thoughtseize your threat, your early threat, right? Because that's all I care about as the lands player. And yeah, and just kind of go from there and be like, oh great, cool, I'm playing the mirror. No, I'll just wait until you have 10 tokens on the field, and I'll just slam down a Massacre Worm and win the game. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't get banned, I think you start seeing a format where every field deck is just a Sultai deck.
Yeah.
And I think that cripples the format further in the sense that like being able to play a turn, let's call it conservatively, a turn 4 Massacre Worm in a format where the only chance you have at beating a field deck is by playing a fast aggressive deck, it's just going to be super warped in the sense that like Massacre Worm's still insanely good in that matchup, and then it's insanely good in the mirror matchup, and then it's like, okay, so where does the format go from here? Mid range isn't fast enough to beat it. You go combo only, and then you're kind of left with a stale format, in my opinion. At that point.
What's funny is that like I was really high on the Bant version, not because of Wrath of God. I mean, Wrath of God is nice, but
Right.
I mean
Definitely.
the version, because like we play a lot all week long. We play Historic against each other, and Kevin makes me want to blow my brains out because I'm playing against Field of the Dead, Bant Field of the Dead with Karn Wishboard for every day. So like I was really high on that because I'm just like, you have so much versatility with the Karn sideboard, and I think it makes your matchups against like a lot of different decks like really easy.
Winnable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
However, like then you get the mirror match, and when you face the Sultai version as Bant,
You just lose.
you get butt fucked because like they just slam
you can't
Massacre
win.
Worm. They slam Massacre
Yeah, like
Worm.
last game, Kevin was like, he's looking good. If that's a true mirror matchup, Kevin wins that game every time.
Yeah.
We both have 3 or 4 fields out, but he casts an Hour Promise, that he has 12 fucking tokens out, and I'm just like, boop, Massacre Worm, good game.
Yep.
Take 24. It's insane.
Yeah, and like I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of like Karn Wishboard that you can do with Sultai. So now you just beat the mirrors and you get like amazing like 1 mana discard, and then you also get this incredible sideboard that you just have access to for like answers to anything that you want.
Yeah. Sultai is so strong for sideboard options. So I think that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like, and the issue is like these other like cards added to the deck are good on their own, but like it takes time for you to kind of like get to all that stuff, to set up all the board, like your board state and whatnot. And what makes it an issue is that like Field of the Dead just makes it so easy for you to build that board, and on top of that for you to just like stall the game out. Like you have like there have been so many games where I'm like if I was playing like some sort of like mid-range deck, or like a kind of an aggressive deck that didn't have like burn, I'm just like, got him down to 3. I got him next turn, and all of a sudden they're like, Hour Promise, grab 2 Field of the Deads, play Growth Spiral into a Fabled Passage, crack the Fabled Passage, and then they have like 10 2/2 zombies, and I'm like, I lose. I can't do anything at that point.
You're just dead.
Yeah. So like it makes those decks just not viable, and it's not fun because you work so hard, and it's just like Hour Promise. Just that's another issue is Hour Promise makes the deck so consistent and so strong.
Yeah. That's a tool that they added obviously in Amonkhet Remastered, and I've said this to you guys. I don't think Hour Promise is a problem. I think Hour Promise is a problem with Field in the format. Sure. And I think that I'm definitely where Kevin's at with, I think you should suspend it, right? Because you suspend it, you see how things go, how the format's looking, or if any new tools happen to be added over time, and then you take a look at it again. I think the value that comes with having a digital platform for Magic is that you can do stuff like that, right? Like you can just say, for 2 months, we're not going to play this card anymore. Okay.
Yeah. And obviously with Historic, since there's no paper version of it ever. Right. There hasn't been a paper version of it ever, really. It's obviously much easier. I mean, the thing is, I guess it's just from WotC's perspective, like, does it look bad to have to suspend a card a second time? As opposed to just getting rid of it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, WotC, just bite the bullet and ban it or suspend it, whatever, either one. Just fucking do something, because I'd rather them be like, hey, we messed up again, than be like, you have to play this format for another 3 months.
Yeah, right. I get that. I mean, I'm not opposed to a ban. If a ban happens, a ban happens. I think that there are very limited tools to deal with this card. I think if you're playing these red decks currently, you don't want to be playing the cards you have access to. I think if you're playing a control deck, if you're trying to play some sort of Azorius control or whatnot, you would have to run 4 Field of Runes in your deck, in addition to whatever other thing you can find, right? Because you have to deal with all 4 of their Fields of the Dead, or you lose.
So really quick, so Bear Jesus 420 in chat just brought up, combo used to be a deck style built around finding very specific pieces and was vulnerable to interaction. Is it the case where the combo pieces are too strong? So the issue with Field of the Dead is like there's no like hand disruption that hits Field of the Dead, for one, because it's a land. Most hand disruptions like hit.
Well, you could run Necromentia.
Yeah. True, but like main board, I'm saying like most of the time you're there's not much you can do, and on top of that, the deck is primarily just ramp cards. So it's like, okay, Thoughtseize, you see a Growth Spiral, Explore, Karn, and like an Hour Promise. That's like the nut hand, right? But like you look at that and you're like, I mean, you hit either like Karn.
Doesn't matter what I take.
you hit like Karn or like Hour Promise, and you're like, I still like feel really bad because they're still ramping. As soon as that land hits the board, any land they draw after that point is just gas. You're putting 2 like. Typically, the case is like a Field of the Dead hits the board before they play Hour Promise. They play Hour Promise. Now they have 3 Field of the Deads, and every time they draw a land off the top, it's 3 2/2s. So that's 6 damage on board, right?
Yep.
And if they have 4, or if they have 4 Field of the Deads, and it's 4 2/2s, that's 8 damage. So now you're on a 3-turn clock versus a
Right.
4-turn, 4-turn clock.
Yeah.
And even if they don't draw a land, that card is probably going to get them a land either way. They're going to play like, they're going to top deck and be like, explore. Oh, here's a land.
Right.
Top deck. Oracle of Moldiah, land.
Two lands.
Hour
Yep.
Promise, land. It's that's why it's so like brutal.
Cultivate land.
Yeah, that's why it's so brutal
It's
to
just-
face the deck. Is
It
like
is. It is.
It's so brutal because it's not even combo, right? To Grant's
Yeah.
question, it's not even combo. It's just the synergy
ramp
are
deck.
just so well put together, and Field of Dead is such a big payoff.
Yeah. It's a
The-
big pay-
So Field of Dead is like your incremental value. It's like your incremental value, and then you have like Karn, Ugin, you know,
Well,
Massacre Worm.
like your large payoffs, and then you're still making guys every turn because you don't need to commit any mana into making 4 2/2s.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
like you could just get games where in the Sultai list, for example, where like, okay, I just play my 2 Hydroid Crazes and you just lose the game. Like I don't even need Field of the Dead necessarily to win. Like I could just play giant Hydroid Crazes and a Nugan and the game's over. And obviously, like at least those you can deal with. But then on top of that, it's like you you go through all that, you kill both of them, the Ugin, blah blah blah, and then I'm like, oh cool, Field is dead, good game.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's Field Dead.
it's so like it's just so resilient and can push through so much shit. Like, I mean, I've had games where like I've played. It was either Sean or Kevin where like I deputy detention these 2/2 zombies like 3 turns in a row. I fucking Charming Prince to flicker my deputy like 2 times in a row. I cleared
Yep.
5 turns worth of zombies, and I still lost because he just putting so much shit out that you just you can't deal with it because you
can't.
can't stop
Yeah.
the engine from fucking going off.
Yeah, and then with the version I've been playing, at least with the Karn Wishboard, it's like you keep getting rid of them, but once I have 4 Field of the Deads in hand, or 4 Field of the Deads on the battlefield, and I draw a land and have a Karn in hand, I'm just playing a Chroma's Memorial, and you're getting hit in the face. for 8.
Annihilated. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I think a suspension's fair. I think that a ban may be warranted. Like, it's definitely not out of the question. I mean, clearly these are major issues we're talking about here. There's no the lack of interaction with this card, I think, is the glaring issue right now. And that makes it hard. Like, yeah, they printed Thoughtseize, but it's like doesn't hit it, and then on top of that, you're giving Sultai Field that card. So now it's like, okay, you sideboarded, right? And you sideboarded in Alpine Moon or Blood Sun, and I'm just like, turn 1 Thoughtseize, take it. Okay, now we're back to what happened in game 1, and yeah, good game.
Yeah, and like right now the only like the viable decks that can probably consistently beat the Field of the Dead, whether it's Bant or Sultai, is probably some sort of like mono red aggro / mono red burn deck where they're running where that way they can aggro them down, and they also run like Rampaging Ferocidon, so that way every time a zombie enters they take 1 damage. It also stops healing, which is important for like the ban matchup where they side in like Anointer Priest. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that, yeah. Anointed Cleric or whatever.
Yeah, and then the other deck is Golgari Citadel, because you just ramp so fast to Bolas to Citadel, and it's fairly consistent, and you just being able to play your whole deck from the top, and then just burning them with Citadel activation with Blood Artist or whatnot. So like I think like those 2 decks are the ones that like keep up with Field of the Dead, but even then like then you're looking at like, okay, how does the meta evolve from there? So it's like if the meta gets to the point where either people are playing Field of the Dead and then mostly like the aggro decks or the Citadel decks, then you have like this third deck that comes in that's like, I want to try and beat the Citadel and like burn decks, but it's gonna for sure lose to the Field of the Dead decks.
100%.
Or it's gonna have like, or it's gonna be like really rough. They have to like have some sort of like specific sideboard combination of cards or whatever, and it's like,
And
I don't want that as like I don't want that for historic. I want it to be very diverse like it is in modern, where it's like you can play multiple decks in modern as long as you have like a decent sideboard. And right now in historic, I don't feel like you can play any deck and have a decent sideboard. I think it's you have to play some very specific strong decks right now, and like that's it.
That's just what it is. I mean, and to be fair, like there have been metas in the past, and not necessarily bad metas where it's a rock paper scissors, right? Like this beats this beats this, but then this beats this.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a feels bad in the sense that like there's 3 or 4 decks in the format, and they're all just beating on each other, and nothing else is really quite strong enough to compete with them. But you know, even though you are one of these strong decks, you auto lose to deck A, but you auto beat deck B. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't like not having. I don't like queuing into a game and being like, okay, I lose.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I need to get to game
Like, okay,
2.
yeah, let's just get to game 2, and maybe I have a shot if I draw this specific card, and they don't remove it, and that sucks, So you don't want that either. I don't know that it's quite that bad yet in historic, but it might get to that point depending on how things shape up.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's quite there yet. I think the format's still not explored as much. I mean, Amonkhet's only been out for a little over a week, so like there's still a lot to see unfold. But I can like see the direction it's going, and that's like if that's the way it's going, then I don't want that. I
mean, I wish they would give it more time. I feel like obviously Field of the Dead was strong before this too, and obviously it just gets way better with Hour Promise. I wish they would give it a couple more weeks, get like a month's worth of data from Amonkhet Remaster, and see what the real problem cards are, right? Because you have no idea, like.
That's true.
If, some other, like, if people are like, hey, I need to just combo out to beat Field of the Dead, and everybody starts playing Kethis combo.
No.
Who knows? I mean, my hot take here is that Kethis, the Hidden Hand, is going to be banned on Monday.
Could be. Or Bowls of Citadel, if we're lucky.
Kevin, I haven't played that deck in like a week now.
That's true. You haven't played it since...
there's a reason why I haven't played it, too, because I play against fucking Field of the Dead and I lose. That's how good it is. But I think because I only really faced like the banned version against you, and like you just play Karn, grab Grafdigger's Cage, and I'm like, oh, I had fun.
Yeah, that's more specific to my version of the deck.
Yeah, but
then again, I also think that like you setting up and Ugin hitting the battlefield, you also just lose.
Ugin's also very bad. Another one is just like if I'm playing the Sultai version, they just get Bojuka Bog.
Yep.
They get Bojuka Bog, or like even I have a Scavenger Grounds and I'm just gonna exile your graveyard, and I'm like, all right, they have a really easy way to search for their utility with Hour Promise, so I guess I'm just not gonna play Kethis combo for now.
True.
Yeah, and so let's talk about let's assume here that Field Dead gets banned or suspended. And Kevin, going back on your point real quick, that's why I think probably part of the reason you mentioned this, and definitely a reason why I think that it should be suspended as opposed to banned for now, because there is still data that needs to be collected, and format's only the new set's only been out for a week or whatever. So you suspend it, you can kind of come back if you think like, oh, maybe these new developments allow for a healthier metagame with Field of the Dead. I think that's a point.
It's like the only obviously I brought up the point, but to play devil's advocate to that point, it's like, I think, yes, I wish they'd give it more time, but if they have some kind of data that was basically showing, Field of the Dead decks were not to the level that they're at now, but before Amonkhet Remastered, if they were still fairly strong, even when they had, Migration Path instead of Hour Promise, and then now it's just a strict upgrade, and they're just, win rates up like 5% or something. If it was like 60% before, and now it's like 65, obviously that's higher than it probably is.
So one thing, I wonder if this is the reason behind WotC's ban on Monday, if it is Field of the Dead, is like, they have the qualifier coming up on August 12th or something like that. It's coming up fast. It's like, or not August 12th, September 12th. I wonder if they're trying to avoid the situation where it's like qualifier comes up, Field of the Dead still unbanned, and then it's just Field of the Dead throughout the whole fucking format, and they're like, well,
Yeah, that's fair. Like,
Mhm.
I
or
don't think they wanted the repeat of like, I forget which Pro Tour it was, but whenever Hogak was out, and there was a modern Pro Tour,
yeah,
and it was
I remember
literally
that.
just Hogak decks.
It was
Yeah.
like six or seven Hogak decks in the
Yeah,
top 8.
it was
Yeah,
like
6.
some absurd number of Leyline of the Voids in sideboards or in
I think
main
it was-
deck. People were
I think it
main
was-
decking Leyline of the Void.
Yeah, people were main decking. Yeah, some number of them.
Mhm.
Um,
And then the other situation that I think they're trying to avoid is like it's a week or two before the qualifier, and then they're like ban, and then now people have to scramble to like
Yeah.
find decks.
They wouldn't do that. So that's probably
Well-
why this is happening on Monday.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
think too. Is that they're trying to give the players that are going to qualify enough time to figure out
Prepare
the format.
decks and figure out yeah.
Yeah, I think they're helping like the pro or not pro player, but like the competitive player in this situation versus like the more casual players.
Yeah. That's
So
fair.
So what do you guys think about if, like I was saying before, if let's assume Field is banned,
Mhm.
do you think that, because I know Pagogo, you've talked to this point about Hour of Promise a lot being very strong. Do you think that, just not banned, sorry, just ramp decks with Hour of Promise will still be powerful?
Viable? Yeah,
Or-
I think 100%.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
I think there'll be
Yeah. I think so too.
like the new like a deck that I think is kind of under the radar right now, mostly just because of Field of the Dead, is
Rub
the
Legends.
no, not that deck.
Hmm.
Is the new Perspective cycling deck, and back when it was in Standard, they ran Our Promise in that deck because it was like good stall because you would describe like 2 deserts and create 2/2 zombies. And I mean the deck's even better now because there's even more cycling cards, and I've played against it, and it's not a bad deck. Like you get to the point where you have the inevitability of just cycling through your whole deck and getting in enough mana to like Fae of Wishes, a Jace, play the Jace, and then you win. So
Interesting.
yeah, you'd have to see the deck in action to like fully understand like
How it functions.
How it functions. But like the deck is very good, and I think that's where Our Promise would sit. And that's another deck where it's like it's gonna run a bunch of different lands for utility. It's gonna have Blast Zone. It's gonna have Scavenger Grounds. It's gonna have Field of the Dead. I don't know, but other like good utility lands. And
Well,
I
And
think
Cycle lands, obviously.
Mhm.
I honestly just think that, outside of that, I think just like maybe not 5 color, but X number of colors, just like good stuff ramp will be good because like if you just like Growth Spiral or Explore package into Golos or Nissa
Uro.
and Uro, and then
Ugin.
Ugin,
Yeah.
and you can even run a Karn board if you really want to, but like it's just the ramp is so efficient. It's just right now ramp has like an unbeatable engine, not unbeatable obviously, but it's a very powerful constant engine. But their top end threats are still insane, right?
Yeah.
But
right.
It's
but-
still insane. It's just like, instead of running, 4 Field of the Dead, you run different utility lands, and they just play some big dumb stuff, and you play, Arboreal Grazer or something.
Sure, but I can argue that with Field of the Dead banned, those ramp decks, they now have a lot tougher time against control decks. Like Azorius control is much better
Yeah.
now because the issue like with the matchup right now is like they're gonna slam Field of the Dead no matter what. Like
You can't counter it.
Maybe the
Yeah.
game goes like a lot slower because they can't play spells, but eventually they're gonna get Field of the Dead on the board and they're gonna start creating 2/2s. And then
Right.
eventually you're going to have to tap out, and then that's when your opponent really pops off, and now you're completely behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So-
I agree. I think control decks get substantially better
Mm-hmm.
in a post-field world, like either Azorius or Grixis, or if you're running some kind of Dimir deck.
Like
Yeah.
I think the format would be actually fairly balanced if Field of the Dead is banned. I I can't imagine a deck that is like much better than everything else. Like I know the decks right now that are competing with Field of the Dead is like a burn deck or like a Golgari Citadel, but I feel like those decks are only really strong right now because they prey upon Field of the Dead. Like I don't think they hold up as well in a meta where people can actually run like removal. Because like
right.
because that's the issue when you play against Field of the Dead decks. Is like you can't really run creature removal because they just become dead cards in hand. And by the time that you're using it as creature removal, you're probably gonna lose because you're probably using that. You're using that on 2/2 zombies, and they're just gonna get more. So,
yeah. I think that's a good point to bring up. I think a meta in Historic where control decks are allowed to compete in a healthy way will allow for a more balanced and diverse format. Because, like, can you even play a fucking mid-range deck right now?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think so it's super hard. It's like
an entirely unplayable archetype in a format right now. And, like, you know, mid-range decks tend to do better against the, you know, aggro matchups, worse against control matchups. Control tends to do better against the mid-range decks and can lose to a race from, you know, an aggro deck. And then combo decks just come in, you know, sometimes they got it, sometimes they don't, which is fun, right? Yeah. But I think in this archetype, you're looking at, here's a Field of the Dead decks, and here are aggro decks, or decks that are specifically targeting Field of the Dead.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing those, well, you're screwed. And you're 100% right that decks like Citadel and stuff, they're so good right now because, like, no one's running, like, cheap board wipes or, like, cheap, you know, spot removal cards for these specific cards that, like, enable that combination. I mean, obviously, Thoughtseize is a great card, but, like, once Control and Midrange are able to really come back into the format, that's when those decks kind of have to readjust and reassess and see, you know, what direction they want to go in. Whereas right now, there's no discussion for it.
Yep. You know, I'm really curious. Maybe they've written this down somewhere, and I don't know. But I'm curious as to, like, what WotC's ban philosophy is. You know what I mean? Like, what is the criteria for banning a card? Is it just percentages in a format, like how much it's played and how much it's winning? Is it meets this criteria of just, like, not being fun, which would be more defined, obviously, but in a simple term, just like the card's not fun for the format. Like,
right. I think there's definitely someone out there who knows the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's not us, dude. We're not smart enough for that shit.
I think that definition has changed drastically in the past 10 years. I think, you know, I played in a standard format where a card getting banned in the standard format was literally like big news. Like, what?
And
it hasn't happened in 15 years or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's funny.
It's been 10 blocks since this happened. And now, you know, coming back and playing on Arena a little bit more, and, you know, we obviously, Kevin and I play a lot of EDH, or played before, you know, all this COVID stuff. You know, and now it's just like I'm hearing every other, you know, every few months, like, oh, this card got banned in standard, or this card got banned. And I'm like, I understand it's a lot of it has to do with them, you know, power creeping the cards and just printed cards that are just, like, so unbelievably strong that it must warrant it. But that philosophy has definitely changed. And I think not necessarily for the worse either. You know, I think it's healthy to monitor what's happening, as long as it's not like, you know, oh, we passed this threshold by 0.01%, you know, like, let's just totally get rid of this card. So
yeah, it's funny because, like, you brought up the point where it's like, for you, when bans happen, it was like, holy shit, can you believe they banned a card? Whereas like when I started playing, it was like ban.
Yeah, you live in a totally different world.
Yeah, and I also came from, like, Yu-Gi-Oh. I swapped from Yu-Gi-Oh to Magic, and in Yu-Gi-Oh, every 6 months, which was somewhat better because you knew when the bans were coming, they had their ban list come out, and their ban list is different. It's like restricted, which means you can't play any. There's limited, so you can only play one ofs, and then there's semi-limited, where you can only play two ofs.
Gotcha.
So it's slightly different than Magic. Magic's just a hard ban, and you know that's one thing I'm a little curious about is like, what would Magic look like if they had like a limited and a semi-limited list, where
That's-
it's like,
They do.
oh yeah, that's right. The what do you call it?
In Vintage,
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't do it in any other format, but
that's a good question, because let's take today for an example. Like, if Field of the Dead was a one of, it would be fine, right?
you wouldn't play
It'd be
it.
fine.
I,
Like, you'd play it, but
You play
like,
it in a ramp deck, but it's not like your whole
yeah,
deck.
I think
Yeah.
it would change the way the decks play. I think you'd play more
Yeah.
like Ugins and Ulamogs and stuff.
yeah. No, you absolutely. You just play that plan, but it's like, hey, I drew my Field of the Dead this game. Like, cool. This is my backup plan.
What
or
do you
whatever.
mean you drew your? You're gonna our promise. You're gonna
searched it.
find
I
it.
know. I know, but I think that would be a very
Yeah, I mean, and also think about like cards that were previously banned in Standard. Like I always think of like Oko, Once Upon a Time, which are fundamentally just poorly designed cards.
busted Magic cards,
Especially like maybe in Modern Horizons, maybe that's more like justifiable, even though it, got banned anyway. But like, having one Once Upon a Time just does not sound great, and having one Oko, it's like, yeah, it's strong, but it's not like format warping,
It's not format warping, but I feel so. Oko is different to me in the sense that, like, okay, but if I draw mine and you don't, I win the game.
Yeah,
Like, it's almost like the Soul Ring thing, right? Where it's like, I drew
Yeah.
my Soul Ring, you didn't draw your Soul Ring. I played Jace the Mind Sculptor on turn 2, and you played Land Go.
And that was one
Um,
issue in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like for the limited cards, it felt bad sometimes because you'd lose to these one-ofs. You're like, of course he had his
They had it.
he
right.
had his Raigeki, he had his Harpy's Feather Duster, because I know both of you obviously know what those cards are.
Those are my favorite cards. Yeah.
It's the equivalent of being like, oh, he drew his fucking Armageddon or he drew his fucking Wrath of God, and you're just like, oh my god, there's a one of, like, come on, dude. But
And I think
Yeah.
I definitely think that it would be an interesting thing to look at. I don't know if they have. I don't know if they want to put that effort in. But I think there are certain cards that would work for, and then there's just cards that should still just be banned.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Once Upon a Time you can do a one of.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think like
It's not. Yeah, it's card selection, and it's card selection is too good if it's your first spell. But like,
what are the odds it's your first spell if you have one in your deck?
exactly, and like 2 mana, look at the top 5 cards. It's like, not.
It's a good impulse, arguably. Yeah.
So.
No, I think you're right with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Field of
then-
the Dead, good card.
Okay, so what is there anything else we need to bring up about Field of the Dead, or do you think we kind of covered it all and we can make we can take it?
I think we covered most of Field of the Dead. I think Kethis the Hidden Hand should be banned, and Field of the Dead should remain in the format. That's my plea to WotC.
So what's our vote for Field of the Dead? Should it get banned,
I think it should be suspended again. That's my vote.
Sean?
I tend to agree with Kevin here because I think you can still look at the format in a couple, in like a month when the format's a little more defined.
I can agree with suspension. Maybe look at the card when like a new set comes out and kind of be
Right.
like maybe print some sort of hate for it, so that way it's like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe we can actually interact with this card now, versus right now where you're just like, all right, I need to use 4 rare wild cards to craft Alpine Moon or Blood Sun, and you're like,
Yeah.
like today I played against someone who's playing like, it was like Boros Prison, and he ran 4 Blood Suns, and I was just like, I thought to myself, I was like, this man crafted these Blood Suns,
Yes, yes, he did.
and Field of the
It wasn't
Dead
his-
is gonna get
it wasn't his-
banned.
He wasted his hard-earned rare wild cards for that.
It all comes full circle. Now we go back to the economy. This is why it's so fucky to have ban lists, because it doesn't just affect that single card. It affects
Yes.
a
lot
bunch
of
of
things.
other things.
Yeah,
Yep, they
yeah.
crafted 4 hours of promise, which I think is still good.
Honestly, they
I think
should,
it'll be fine.
if they ban a rare or a mythic card, they should just give everyone 4 wild cards of that kind to everyone, because people are gonna craft fucking cards that are gonna have to deal with that shit. Either it's another card that has to work in the deck, or it's a sideboard card. Just give them fucking wild cards. Give people wild cards. That's all we want.
I agree. Take away. Wait, hold on. Let me look real quick. Hold on. Take away on the mastery tree, or the mastery whatever this thing is, this ranking system. Take away every single cosmetic card and put a wild card of some sort that's not a common or uncommon in that slot. Because Kevin, can you tell me what the card Daybreak Charger does?
No.
Can you tell me what color it is?
Is it red?
It is a white card. So that, by the way, is my next reward for my mastery, which is I'm so excited. Like, I don't even know what the card does. Give me a wild card. What are you doing?
Yeah,
and not only is that a reward for that mastery ranks, that's the reward for like I don't even know what it's called. You buy it, right? Like for gems or whatever. That's for the paid level of it. The top level is just packs every other level. And it's like, come on, guys. Come on.
Okay, so since we talked we talked about the economy a bunch. We talked about the economy a bunch last week. So since we're talking about bans, is there anything on the suspension or ban list for Historic that we would like to see come off?
Can you tell me what's on the suspended list or ban list? I don't have it up right now.
I will pull it up in a moment.
I'm sure our viewers will love to know as well.
Yes, I will read it off. Hold on.
Let's go down the list, boys.
Historic MTG.
Yeah, let's go one by one. You say keep it on the ban list or take it off.
Or suspend it.
Let's see.
I think it was already banned.
This article does not seem correct, because it says we only have 3 banned cards right now.
In Historic?
Yeah, that is not right.
That actually sounds correct.
No.
Unless they're all suspended?
All right, I got it.
Is that possible?
Oh, it could be that they're suspended and not banned. Okay.
I have it. Ready?
Wait, hold on. So I'm looking at the wiki, and it says suspended, banned, and then it says unsuspended cards, and it just lists 1, and it says Field of the Dead. Someone updated that shit today.
All right, ready. Agent of Treachery.
Keep that shit banned. Fuck that card.
I agree. Keep it banned.
Yeah, it's a little busted.
It's unfun.
If it said take control of a non-land permanent, I think I'd be okay with it. But the fact that it says anything, it gets to the point where, I mean, I'm sure it's been explained by WotC, but like, bring it in, or like if you run like the Luca version where you're just like, basically polymorph.
I'll read the card and then read what it does.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be right back, but you guys keep going.
Yeah, so Agent of Treachery is 5 blue for a 2/3 creature. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really busted. Well, it was really busted with another card that got banned, which is Winota.
Right.
So
it just comes into play.
Yeah, I guess I'll read Winota,
Go ahead,
even though she's one of the more recent bans. Winota, Joiner of Forces from Ikoria. It's 2 and Boros, so 2 red-white for a 4/4 human warrior. When a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in any order. So specifically with that card, it's whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, you look at the top 6. So if you have 3 non-humans attack, you get 3 triggers. You look at the top 18.
And what is she? She's a 4-drop?
She's a 4-drop. 4 mana 4/4.
Yeah, so you're just like, turn 4, you're just like, hey, I'm going to steal a few of your permanents. Good luck with the rest of the game. Like, if you take 3 lands there, or assuming you hit them, right? Let's say you hit 2 of them. Like, your opponent just lost the game. Like, there's nothing you can do about it.
We were just talking about Winota.
Yep.
The interaction between them,
Wireless headset. It's magical.
Nice.
Argue. Honestly, seems like another stake that should be once per turn at most. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
All right, the next card is Burning Tree Emissary. So it's
Yeah.
red or green or green-red to cast. So 2 mana, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, add red-green to your mana pool. This
This is one of my favorite cards.
I am a fan of Burning Tree Emissary. I think it's powerful, especially in like the deck. The deck it was in when it was played in Historic, but like I don't know. I think that can be taken off the ban list. But
Kevin.
They can.
No. Leave it there. Bro,
They
okay.
can. They can try it, but
The thing is
don't
like Embercleave becomes
Yeah.
it's so dumb, dude.
I know.
It's so dumb.
I don't know. I just think it's fine to give another tool to like roll aggro.
aggro decks. I mean, there are a lot of very strong aggro decks already that are out there, and that's not. Listen, you're running that if you're running mono red. It doesn't. Just because it has green in
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you're
it's
playing.
about it.
Yeah, you're playing every mono red deck's playing that because you just go burning tree, burning tree, burning tree. I don't know, whatever 2-drop you have in your red deck, and it's over. Unless if they have the early board wipe, they have it. If they don't, the game's over.
Yeah. It
I
kind
don't
of
think it's necessary.
I was gonna say it
I-
kind
and
of
listen-
forces decks to run like a 3-mana board wipe, whether it's like
Mhm.
Anger of the Gods,
Oops.
Sweltering Suns, Deafening Clarion, whatever the
Bontu's,
fuck.
Bontu's last, whatever.
Yeah. But
And
anyways.
there are a number of them in the format, so it's not horrible. But I think it's closer than Agent of Treachery is to being off the ban list.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that card was also just fucking nuts in standard with like Nykthos decks and stuff like that. So
All right, next card, Fires of Invention. 3 and a red for an enchantment. You can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. You may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana cost.
that's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, it's definitely a no for me.
It's a no for it's a no for me. But I am curious what the deck would be like now that Teferi is suspended.
It was
Yeah.
insane.
'Cause
You
that-
just
that-
run-
I mean, that was
You
one
just
thing
run-
that made the deck so strong was like you just go like you have 2 mana, you have like some sort of removal like Bone Crusher Giant. 3 mana, you drop to fairy, bounce their shit, and then you go fires, and then you play like a Sphinx.
right.
So
I never liked playing against the card.
trust me, I never liked it either. I'm just I hated that shit so much. But like I'm just
Yeah.
curious like how it would play now with
I mean-
everything in the format. But
Me personally, I would just run a rug ramp deck and just win the game because it's the more lands you have out, the better it is, right? So if I'm running my, Genesis Ultimatum deck with 3 Ugins, a Platinum Angel, and an Ulamog, it's looking pretty damn good to me because it says you can cast those spells. It doesn't say I can't put permanents on the battlefield.
it's true.
So
It's true.
I think that just because that wasn't explored because there were better options at the time doesn't mean it won't be insane right now as well.
Hmm.
Next card, Infamous, Nexus of Fate. 5 blue
Not
blue for
nowhere.
an instant. Take an extra turn after this one. If Nexus of Fate will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, reveal Nexus of Fate and shuffle it into its owner's library instead.
I don't know. Like honestly, I didn't
7 mana,
mind.
dude. Come on.
Yeah, it's 7 mana, and I didn't
Powerful.
really mind. Like I didn't mind playing 2-hour games. Like it was fine.
So when that was first printed, in my head, because I thought this would make it a reasonable card, I thought it was a sorcery. So I was like, this card's all right. It's a
I
sorcery
think it'd be
spell.
fine as a sorcery.
What?
I think it would be fine as a sorcery.
Yeah, it'd
Well,
be fine.
I guess is Nexus of Fate as busted if you don't have Wilderness Reclamation?
I think it's still busted.
Yeah.
I think with the amount of ramp that we have in this format, it's like you don't like necessarily need the Team Erect right now. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
it'd be helpful, it'd be nice, but like you have so much ramp that you're gonna have so many lands at some point that you're just gonna be like, Nexus of Fate, Field of the Dead, Nexus of Fate, Field of the Dead, and you're like, So
Yeah, that's true. I could do that.
Yeah, I think it stays. It 100% stays on the
yeah,
ban list.
I agree with
Alright,
that.
next up, my favorite card on this whole list, Oko, Thief of Crowns, 1 green blue for legendary planeswalker. Comes in with 4 loyalty counters. +2, create a food token. +1, target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elf creature with base power and toughness 3/3. -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature and opponent controls with power 3 or less.
So who has an argument to unban it?
He's hot.
I've never even heard of that card before. Do I have an argument to unban it?
I don't.
No.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, it's powerful. Sure.
I can't think of anything. Yeah.
And Oko's best buddy, Once Upon a Time. One
think
in
it's
green
fine.
for an instant. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Pagogo, what do you think?
Something that costs 0 mana that lets you dig for free. Seems unfun to me.
Seems extremely fun to me, but I understand why it's bad.
So like one issue that that I've seen brought up is like, and this goes back to like the mulligan rule, is like the London mulligan, that is, where you draw 7 and then you choose which cards to put back. Is it kind of makes, at least in standard it did, and maybe even to some extent modern and other formats, it makes the games a lot more of the same. Like games
Yes.
they feel like they're gonna play out the same way each time because of how consistent your draw is, and to amplify that with Once Upon a Time feels so bad. Like,
Yeah.
I would hate going into every matchup. Like, 'cause, I mean, there are some matchups where it's like my chances are low, but I might have a little chance here or there based on draw or this or that. But when you have such consistent draws, it's like I can't do anything.
Yeah, it takes out a lot of the variance, which is like obviously a major factor in card games.
Yeah, that's what makes Magic is the variance. Like you have to play,
Right.
you have to play to the variance. You can't just be like,
Yes.
it's a linear game.
Right. If you ignore variance in those types of games, you're probably losing a lot. Number one, but it also, you want that. You want some number of it, right? Like obviously you don't want to like have a totally different game to a point where you can't have a strategy, but like that's what makes the game fun. And I think that if you're running 4 of those and you can have your starting hand look pretty much the same every game, then no, I'm good.
Yeah, I think it's if it's too good for modern, it's too good for historic.
Good point. I like your philosophy.
Dude, wait, but Kevin, imagine that card in Kethis combo.
Oh my god, shut up. Next card, last card on the banned list currently. Veil of Summer. 1 mana instant. Draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn. Spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and from black until end of turn.
I'm actually okay with this one being unbanned, and that's serious.
Are you actually?
Yeah, I think of all the cards that you name, that and Burning Tree Emissary are the closest for me.
I think
that
I think they're closest too, but I still say no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it necessarily in the format. Did it even get a chance in the format?
I'm not too sure on that, to be honest.
I don't know if it did, but it's obviously a very good card. A lot of the time, though, it's a sideboard card, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, in Historic, I feel like, green decks are not in the place that they were when they were running Oko and 4 Veil of Summers in the sideboard, in standard or modern at the time. I think it's possible to be put back in the format and have it be okay, but I also think that like the more cards you add to the format, the more problematic it gets. But with Thoughtseize being in the format, it's like
And I think
when I think of power level, and like I think that's kind of on par. Maybe I'm stupid.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I think what the cool thing about Veil of Summer is that it lets you interact with Thoughtseize, right? Like I go turn 1 green source, you go Thoughtseize. I'm like, no, finally for once I can stop
Yeah,
it.
right.
I can
Wait,
stop it.
you don't like hand disruption, Sean?
I don't.
I was thinking.
I don't
about-
think. Go ahead. Go.
I was literally thinking about how I can build a deck with running 4 Thoughtseizes, 4 Pack Rats, and then like
No.
just
Please.
whether it be like just full discard or just like Rat Tribal running 4 Thoughtseizes.
Wait,
Oh.
Sean, what's that little song you made about Pack Rat?
Oh my god.
So,
I got it. Okay. He's got rats. They're multiplying. And I'm losing to control. Cause the demons he's supplying, they got flying. Better scoop up. Cause I have no hand. Something like that. That's an ode to Mono Black / Orzhov Devotion back in the Theros days when Packrat was running rampant and Thoughtseize was in standard. And yeah, it's pretty brutal.
So, last 2 things. On the suspended list currently, do we think they should be banned permanently or put back into the format? One is Teferi Time Raveler. 1 white blue for a legendary planeswalker enters with 4 loyalty. Static ability. Each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. +1. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. -3. Return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card.
I just realized if you bring that back in the format, you have an instant speed Wrath of God.
Yeah.
I think
that's a no for me.
yeah,
honestly.
I think it should stay suspended.
I think it's banned, honestly.
It should be banned. Well, it's either getting brought off the suspended list or banned. So I think it should be banned.
I think it should be banned.
I just
That-
don't think it's just not fun.
It's true.
It's just the most unfun card.
It makes it so that you have to play cards that immediately provide value, and
Yeah.
I'm tired of doing that. I want to play some dumb janky card that is good when I attack or comes online next turn. I don't want to have to be like play a card and be like, well, I hope he doesn't bounce it. Like, I don't want that anymore. I'm done with that.
Yeah, I think the main point to Teferi in this war is Teferi banned in Modern or Legacy or anything?
It's not.
It's not. Okay, and I think that makes sense. But I think in Historic, you're working with a smaller card pool by far than like Modern or even Pioneer. And I think that when you take away whatever it is, 15% of the card pool doing what it's supposed to do in the form of instant speed, yeah, that's not fun for anybody. And I think that, yeah, that's that.
So,
Yeah.
really quick, before we move on with the other suspensions. So, like, Bear Jesus 420 in chat, he's saying, last I seriously played was RTR, and power creep is being looked at as a serious issue. And now we are 6 years later and have extensive bans in Standard. He said, what, like 20 bans in 5 years? And,
At least, yeah.
I don't know if this is an issue of, like, power creep and WotC not, like, printing balanced cards, or if it's, like, people are just so much better at Magic now. There's so many more resources at everyone's disposal, and having Arena also amplifies the fact that you're gonna figure out shit in a format a lot faster. I don't know if like there's one single contributor. Maybe it's just like an amalgamation of all that, but like Magic is completely different from what it was 10 years ago. Not just from the cards, but just like with social media and like Reddit and all that shit. It just allows like formats to evolve so much faster, and it's kind of sad almost because like it was fun to have these formats like slowly unfold and you get to really experience it all. But now it's just like 2 or 3 weeks in, it's like formats pretty much almost like solved.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with like the life cycle of Standard in terms of like being a solid format is much shorter, but and this is just me being, maybe it's just me being more pessimistic about how Magic has been over the past couple of years, but like, I mean, look at the cards that have been printed.
Mhm.
Like obviously Oko is the most famous example, right? Oko
right.
is just fundamentally just
Powerful.
more powerful than it has the right to be. For a 3-mana planeswalker that enters the battlefield with what? Is it 5 loyalty or 4?
Starts at 5, I think.
4.
No, it starts at 4. It starts at 4. It goes to 5.
With 2 pluses,
Yeah.
right? So that card I think is fundamentally just should never have been printed the way it was. You know, one of the abilities, maybe the +1 needs to be a -1 at least, or a -2. Like, and then think about Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Free 0 mana, dig 5 cards deep. That just seems like not a smart idea to print either. Like, free spells have never really been weak in any sense of the word. And then think about, like, you know, I don't know, just like we've been talking about, like Field of the Dead. Like in standard, they printed Field of the Dead into a standard that had Scapeshift in it. Like, this is the thing, is like, I don't understand how so many, and you know, I've talked to this with a couple of people. Like, I don't understand how, like, you have such a limited card pool you're working with as like a designer, right? And obviously, like, their job is very difficult, and I could never do it. Like, I will not sit here and pretend that I like can do a better job designing cards with them, because I can't, right? And I would not be able to manage this, but like, as their like professional career, printing Field of the Dead into like a format that had Scapeshift in standard,
Right.
seems like a huge mistake to me.
And
Like,
like,
that seems like I just don't understand. Like, how does that not come up in playtesting? And you're like, oh, this is fine. Like, I don't know. That's my thought. And then just like, and then also just like, obviously this is unrelated to historic or standard that we're talking about, but just like, you know, some cards just slipping under the crack is like unbelievably broken in Eternal formats. Like,
yeah.
Lurrus in Vintage. Like, how do you look at Lurrus and you're not like, this seems pretty good with Black Lotus?
Okay,
Yeah.
This seems like a problem.
I will say when companions were released, that shit was so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, when before the fix where it required you to spend 3 mana to add it to your hand and then you can play it. Just being able to play it from the fucking sideboard, I was just like, this is so. So we're starting the game with. We're starting the game with 8 cards now, and if you're not running it, you're at a huge disadvantage. Like, for me, that was like the breaking point where I'm like, I was very upset, and I didn't play Magic for a while until they reverted the companion rule. Then I was like, okay, I'll take a look now.
So going back to the power creep thing again, for me, that what he brought up, you know, Bear Jesus, for me, it's all power creep, because I played in formats that, you know, 9 years ago, where people figured it out quick, and people, you know, we had very powerful cards, and, you know, formats were defined by certain cards, and there was a very healthy discussion going on, and, you know, there was still like social media, and there was still MTGO, and there was still all these things. Maybe it didn't develop quite as fast, but still fast enough where, you know, in the last couple months of the set, you're kind of like, all right, like, kind of sick of this standard now, and I think that's just inherently going to happen as the world becomes more fast-paced. For me, it's power creep. If you're printing cards that you can't even fit the fucking text in the text box, something's wrong. And like, not even that, like, literally, like, on MTGO, there's some cards you have to scroll down in the text box in MTG Arena to read it.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, what card? I need to know.
When they come up in like revealed cards, they're cards that you have to scroll down.
No fucking way.
Dude, I swear to God, next time we play, I'll find a card with a lot of text and you'll have to scroll down. So that's like, and obviously a lot of text doesn't necessarily mean a lot of power, but there are cards that just do so much packed into one package that, like, there's so much power then in a deck, right? Like, if you have 4 of those cards, and all these cards have so many layers of versatility, like, obviously, like, things are going to slip through the cracks, because now the developers and playtesters have to look through all of these layers, and they don't have millions of people worldwide to do that playtesting for them. So obviously, when that all gets released, then yeah, it's like, well, how did you miss this? But it's like, it's easy to miss when your every card takes 5 minutes to read. So like, for me, it's power level predominantly, and because you can do things with cards, like they don't use the mechanics of the game to their advantage. Like you can make more cards that do stuff like when they attack or when they block or activated abilities that cost mana instead of like everything that's a good card being like, if it's not an enter the battlefield effect, it's trash.
Yeah.
Like you can rebalance the game, especially standard at least, where you reel it in a little bit. Like you have those cards that are like kind of these staple, like, wow, that's a powerful card. Like, oh my god, Geist of St. Trath. That's like an amazing card in standard. But then you can still have like other cards that are just like very strong that can help define an archetype, but aren't like, oh, we have to ban this card in order to fix the format. And I think that's kind of like where they lost sight of the original like design of cards. Once they started going like over the top, trying to top every card, every expansion, you're playing a losing game there because the game's just going to be totally different.
So going back to that issue of like you have to scroll through to read all the text.
Right.
In Yu-Gi-Oh, they didn't have any keywords for cards.
Oh no.
So it explained everything. Yeah. So imagine. So what for one, a Yu-Gi-Oh card is smaller than a Magic card.
Yeah, they're
like
smaller.
A lot
Yeah.
smaller. Okay. See this like all this little text right here. The box would be about this big, like almost cut in half, and the font is it's like 8-point font. And imagine like Questing Beast being an 8-point font, and it's like if this were to attack, it will apply its damage first. This can attack the turn that it is summoned. If this were to attack, it is not tapped. And like imagine all that put in there, plus like the other text of like, if it deals damage, it also deals damage to planeswalkers, and it can't be blocked by creatures with powers 2 or less.
Yeah, that's insane.
So like,
that's ridiculous,
dude. Yu-Gi-Oh was so fucking rough because there were so many cards that were like Questing Beasts, just because like their effects were just so convoluted. It'd be like, shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 7, separate it into 2 piles. Your opponent will pick a pile. You separate that pile into another 2 piles, and your opponent picks that pile. And like, that's an exaggeration, but like it was super long text, and you're just like, I can't fucking read this shit. It was so annoying.
Well, it's like that one. There's like that one Magic card from a set that wasn't like, I don't think it was a
Oubliette. Is it Oubliette?
I think so. Where you have to play a sub game or whatever.
Oh no,
Charizard.
Yeah. Where it's like, both players stop what they're doing and play a sub game, and the winner of that game, like the reward for like winning the sub game, is like, they're all cards.
No,
I don't know.
Whoever loses, I think, loses half their life.
Yeah, where it's like, why would you want to do that ever? Like,
yeah. So I guess just like to maybe wrap up the point that we're talking about and people in chat are talking about is I'm going to read the current standard ban list.
Oh,
so these are all cards that were play tested together in design, and you tell me your thoughts on what do you think a standard with all of these cards in it at the same time would look like, and how did it get printed? Okay. Agent of Treachery, Cauldron Familiar, Field of the Dead, Fires of Invention, Growth Spiral, Oko Thief of Crowns, Once Upon a Time, Teferi Time Raveler, Veil of Summer, Wilderness Reclamation are all supposed to be legal and standard right now.
Initially, they were supposed to be, correct.
The deck, dude, the deck would... It would just be it'd be like all the banned cards are just thrown together in a deck. It's like a Teamer Wreck, Field of the Dead, Growth Spiral, Once Upon a Time Oko deck, and you're just like,
So I haven't played Standard in a while, like in a long time. Mm-hmm. Why is Growth Spiral so problematic that it's banned? Is that a worthy ban in Standard right now? Is that a thing?
I didn't think so, but people, I think it was more so it was in Teamer Wreck, and I think it's too consistent
Like, is that
Right.
more of a problem than like Uro?
I I don't think so, but
I think like I mean Zach Canner in chat can probably talk a little bit more to this, but like, and I've read articles about why Growth Spiral should be banned. It was just kind of like, it's played turn 2, and as an aggressive deck, you thrive on your opponent having to go through the first 3 turns, and then by turn 4 or 5, you're like, okay, I'm in reach of killing them now. Growth Spiral just skips that. You're just like, there is no turn 3 now. I'm on turn 4, and that's when you have Shatter the Sky. I mean, in Historic you have like Wrath of God, but like now you start playing like the big shit that like matters, and so it was very rough to deal with, in my opinion, because not only like are you ramping, but like you draw a card. Like this may be a land that you're already gonna play, and then you're just drawing a card off it, so you just keep so much like advantage. So I don't know, it didn't feel good for me. Also, it's an instant, so like it's very flexible. So like if you have like removal, you can just hold up removal, and if your opponent doesn't play anything, then you're like,
You ramp, right? Or
then
draw,
I
whatever.
ramp or I cycle through a card.
I mean,
That's why
that's
Uro's
like-
not as bad, because Uro's like you have to play it on your turn, and you can exile it from the graveyard, so that way you don't get like the escape happening. Uro's still bad, in my opinion. I think Uro's still very, very strong.
I love Uro personally, but
Well,
I think it's strong. I think it's very strong. I think it's just a cool card.
it is cool. It is a cool card.
Yeah, so
When you play like 3 standard formats with it in there, you're like,
you're over it.
yeah.
Here is again. Yeah, no, I was just curious, like, honestly, because I don't know, like, there have been effects like that in Magic forever in Standard. Like, even just like a Llanowar Elf, like, I know it doesn't do the same thing, but like ramping has generally been fine. I think the problem lies when like things like Field of the Dead are like the payoff for it. So I was just curious if in Standard if that was that banned before Field of the Dead.
Growth Spiral was just recently banned. It was banned along with Temur Reclamation and Historic. that ban list, I believe, or maybe even before that. Actually, I'm not sure.
it was that ban announcement.
It was okay. Yeah, it was very recent.
Gotcha. Okay. And no, everything else seems absolutely insane. Like Fire's Invention, obviously, like fucking busted.
Yeah.
Ancient of Treachery, all these things in conjunction with what's in the format already, like these enabler cards. It's just stupid.
I think what
So
made
Sean, are you implying that Llanowar Elves should be banned in Standard, Sean?
It's a hot take, but a lot of people are gonna be upset that they lose their 16 common wild cards. So probably not.
I think islands should be banned because islands allow counterspells, and counterspells are unfun.
That's true.
Okay, so I was gonna bring this up earlier, but like, so we mentioned all of like the banned cards for Historic or suspended cards for Historic.
Mm-hmm.
What if we unbanned and unsuspended all of the cards at once?
That'd be fun.
I think that'd be.
It would be fun. I think it'd be fun.
I think WotC, what they should do for like good research for them and good data collecting is have an event where it's like no ban list Historic, have at it. No ban list Standard, have at it, and just see what fucking happens and gather data and be like, what happened over the weekend? What was good and what was bad? What could we maybe bring back? You know what I mean? Because right now it's all like theory and like conjecture. Like,
right.
Could we bring this back? I don't know. This kind, we don't really know.
Yeah.
We could play test by ourselves, but we've play tested before and we've been wrong. So.
Yeah, I mean, we could technically play Death
That's
with
true.
those cards in it, right? Like you're allowed to do it because like when you're challenging friends, you can play it. So like, I would be down to do that just for fun. But like, people have held events like that in the past. Like I forget if it was like I don't think it was like a WotC sponsored event. I think it was Star
SCG.
City maybe that
SCG.
held like no ban list Modern. And Eye of Ugin decks just like shit on everything. 'Cause
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it'd be more fun for Historic just to see what evolves, or like even Standard too, just to be like, what's gonna happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that sounds fun. I would definitely do that. be very interesting. And I think I don't know, like part of me is aware that like the power level is the reason why there are more bans in standard, and like them trying to come up with like cool new cards and new ways to make cards, and I get it. And part of me is also just like people are fucking crying too much, and like
Whoa.
just don't want to like.
So all the Zoomers.
Well, no, not for nothing. Like I do think part of it is that, and because with the rise of social media, like we were talking about before, also came the rise of like people bitching about everything all the time. So like that's definitely there. That's definitely pressure on WotC to kind of like try to make everybody happy. Whereas before it was like these are the fucking cards, dude, and like if we see a problem, we'll get rid of it. But if we don't,
Yeah.
fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
Like it took a long time for like Stoneforge, Mystic, and Jace to get banned in standard. Like, if they were in standard now, they would have been gone in a month.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely part of the reason. I think that people like up in arms about decks that they just don't like to play against is an issue. Like I don't think Growth Spiral should have been banned. I don't care what anyone says. Like Growth Spiral is a good card, and it's a fair card. And I think in conjunction with maybe with Wilderness Wreck or maybe with Field of the Dead, but if those are also banned, I don't see a problem with a card like that. I think that comes from people being like, there's too much ram decks in the format. And then it's like, okay guys, we'll get rid of it for you. So,
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that there is a lot of complaining in the Magic community of like cards and shit. I think the complaining is justified when people play test enough, but like at the same time, like I feel like we kind of know like you've played probably like 5 games today, and you lost all of them to Field of the Dead, and like like so your bias is probably just like I lost to this card and it sucks and it's not fun.
Yeah.
Whereas like I at least want people to try and figure out shit and be like, can we do it this way? Can we do it that way? And then be like, is this even reasonable to like expect people to beat the deck by like playing like 8 sideboard cards or these like niche cards that are only good in this like matchup? Like I don't know, but like I at least want people to try, because it makes not only themselves a better Magic player, but it makes the whole community like a better like it makes the whole community stronger if people can like actually use their brains and be like, we figured it out, guys, this is how we do it.
Here's a solution to this problem, and collectively if like you really can't find a solution, like then so be it. Like people have to recognize that in every format there's gonna be a deck that's like just a little bit better than all the other decks, and I'm not saying that like Field of the Dead should run rampant and it's fine. Like I think that there's certain cards that are actually problems that really warp a metagame and change inherently what you're allowed to play if you want to try to win. But then I think there's just like people are like, well, this deck has a 54% win rate and my deck only has a 52% win rate. So like that deck's too strong, and it's like it's not. Play better.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so last topic to move on to. I think it's a fun one. If there could be any card within reason
Black Lotus
that you could have reprinted into Historic, what would you do? What would you have reprinted?
That's a good question.
I have no idea, so I want to hear what you guys think.
Those boys.
Okay, so let me add something else. Let's say it's not within Pioneer standards, because I think Wizards is trying to incorporate everything from Pioneer into Arena slowly, so that way they can just be like, this is the Pioneer format now. So let's think, try and think outside of whatever's in Pioneer.
Why don't we do like card type by card type? Because I feel like picking one is very hard.
Bro, I've had too much to drink to think about different card types.
All right, if I had to pick any one card, just like randomly, I mean, I loved Infect, so maybe Blighted Agent, but then you don't have like all the other pieces.
Kevin is now the least favorite host on this podcast.
And then I don't know. Maybe Liliana with the Veil. Sounds fun.
I would say Jason Mind Sculptor.
Yeah,
Snap,
Jace would be.
snap it off.
Wait, but that,
Jason
that,
would be,
that would be fun with Jason. Teferi.
Jason would be extremely fun in Historic for like a month.
Yeah.
No, it would be fun. I don't even think, honestly, hear me out here. In Historic, I don't think Jace would be busted. I think it would be very strong.
Because you don't have fetches. So.
Well, you don't have fetches, which makes the brainstorm worse, obviously. But you also like Jace didn't exist in a world where destroy target planeswalker existed. So, in a world like that, the difference between like the reason is absolute shit in Modern is just too slow, right? And nobody's even running like destroy target planeswalker cards because there's no reason to. Like your deck just does better stuff. So I think in this format, or even in Pioneer, like he could be fun, and I don't think it would be too strong. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm overlooking some things, but I think like if Jace turn 3 or 4 is fine. And I just love the card, so it's
let's just reprint Gaia's Cradle. Thoughts? Concerns?
I already have Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, you do.
Oh yeah, it Lamach of Growing Rights. You're correct. I forgot.
Usually.
No.
I thought you were gonna say Marwyn or whatever her name is.
Ooh, you know it'd be good? Ensnaring Bridge. Fun? Thoughts?
No. You have one card to reprint into Historic, and that's what you fucking pick? You degenerate.
I wouldn't pick that.
I'm kind of getting hung up on Snapcaster Mage from Bear Jesus in chat.
I think Goyf too sounds great.
Goyf?
I feel like I just feel like they might be a little too much. I don't know.
Not really. Like Heartless Act just kills Goyf, right? Like,
yeah.
I suppose it does.
That's what happened in Modern. Like, talk to Zach about this. The second, what's that 1 mana card called that just removes everything? Anything 2 or less?
Fatal Push. Fatal Push.
Once Fatal Push was picked, like was made, like Goyf dropped off the face of the planet.
That's true. That's true.
It disappeared in Legacy. In Modern, it was no longer a card. So like, there's so much good cheap spot removal that like, is Goyf too powerful? Maybe, but like, there's a lot of ways to interact with him in the early
I suppose we have like Fiend Artisan, and he's like not doing much.
Yeah.
What would I want?
Zach
Snapcasters. Oh, the 5 mana one? Get the fuck out of here, dude.
What do I want?
No, I think that would be worse than Jace, dude. I think Gideon would be worse than Jace. I definitely think so.
There's nothing wrong with Gideon Joe.
No, he's fine. He starts at 6, dude. He's like 6 plus 2.
It's +2 is target opponent, or during target opponent's next turn, creatures that player controls attack Gideon Jar if able.
Such a good card.
-2, destroy target tapped creature. 0. Until end of turn, Gideon Jar becomes a 6/6 human soldier creature that's still a planeswalker, prevents all damage that would be dealt to him this turn.
He's really good.
Oh, what
but
about?
He also didn't exist in a format with planeswalker movement, so I could understand it.
I honestly I don't think this would be good for the format. But what about Lightning Bolt?
Bolt's too good for the format.
Yeah,
I think
bolts.
all the 1 mana spells,
You
all
can't
the
make
1 mana cheap like cantrips and bolts I think are too good.
I think that like you don't want to be making red better than it is, right? Do you?
Reprint Slippery Bogle.
God.
No,
Hell
that would be
no.
unfun.
What? Come on.
Are you insane? Are you fucking babe? Oh my god, I think that would be too strong.
No, I agree. I agree.
I don't think so.
I think it'd
Do
be
you think-
good, but I don't think it'd be
I don't
too
think it'd be
strong.
that great.
I don't know. Maybe.
The only way a lot of decks beat
Wait.
those like Azorius tempo decks right now is by having like a Doomblade effect.
No, I mean there's Thoughtseize now and there's sack effects, and I don't think Bogle would be an issue in the format.
Okay. I think
What if we reprinted one of the swords?
Just one? Which one?
just one.
I have no idea. I don't know like what the swords do. I just know that
Feast and
they're
Famine
Feast and Famine would be it.
is the card. Yeah, Feast and Famine. Yeah. for sure.
Hmm.
Feast and Famine is +2/+2, pro black, pro green. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, untap all your lands and that player discards card.
Oh, there you go. Team of Rex alive again.
Yeah, it's back, boys.
Dude, just
With the trigger on
Uro,
the stack.
play Uro, escape it, just slap that shit on Uro. Uro's just
Yeah.
swinging in, untapping your lands.
For 8. I want to go back to Snapcaster Mage though.
You know that's already in the format. It's a red one though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dire Fleet Daredevil.
Hmm.
That card's actually good. That card's actually good.
I think Snapcaster would be fine.
Is Snapcaster fine in a world where you go Thoughtseize, Snapcaster, Thoughtseize?
Yes. I mean, you're doing that.
Mystic
in your Rakdos
Remora.
deck anyway. No, Mystic.
You are,
Remora,
but
no.
you are, but you aren't, because like you have a chance to interact with Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Yeah.
Like you don't have that option with Snapcaster unless you're playing counterspells.
Death Shadow. Ooh.
Mm.
Death Shadow would be. I don't know.
I'm
Would it
trying
be
to
good in this format?
I'm trying
I
to
feel
think like there's not a lot of like
Not
there's not
Street Wraith. You only have really shocks to hurt yourself, right?
shocks and Thoughtseizes. It would be something like you'd run shocks, shocklands, Thoughtseizes, and like Dreadhorde Arcanist because you want to like recast the Thoughtseizes.
Mm.
What else would you?
I'll let
Yeah.
Zach do it. Zach will figure it out.
Dude, you can
What
you
about-
can you can call the Death Dweller it to get it to give it menace.
Why don't you reprint Rakdos Return? I think that would be a fun one.
What is that?
Look it up. Jund Ramp boys, let's go.
That sounds great.
Zach knows that card.
Oh,
Let's see.
how would you feel about Court of the Calling?
I think Court of Calling's probably it might be too good with Crater Hook.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
That's a thing you can do.
you got me there.
I think Rakdos Return is a perfect card for the format.
I think
What is-
it'd be fun.
What does that do again?
It's X. Go
X
ahead.
black red sorcery. Rakdos' return deals X damage to target opponent or planeswalker. That player or that planeswalker's controller discards X cards.
Hmm.
I think that sounds like a great card to play against Sean.
Yeah, that. If you thought Thoughtseize triggered me, imagine you're sitting there and you're like, "Oh, nice! I have 5 cards in hand. I have decent board advantage. Okay, cool. Raptor's turn. X equals 5. Oh, I lost the game because now I have no cards. Okay, cool." It's interesting because you could definitely see like certain cards absolutely could be in the format because like maybe there's just not enough to support it. Like Death Shadow, for example, I think like you could put it in the format and be totally fine because I don't think there's enough to make it busted.
Yeah.
But then there's other cards that you're just like no, don't bring that up.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
So it's cool. It is cool to think about that and just delve into it because everyone has like cards that they love, right? Like whether they're good or not,
I was gonna say Gurmag Angler, but he would be in Pioneer.
Birthing Pod,
Ooh,
easy clap.
spicy.
I don't think I'd bind a Birthing Pod deck in Standard or not Standard, Historic.
Historic.
I mean,
You have decent targets,
yeah,
dude. Think about this: you sacrifice your Llanowar Elf, and you get a fucking Fibblethip, and you draw 2 cards.
a value,
Did I just figure it out? Did I just do that?
dude. Don't
Don't
tell Watsy, dude. They're gonna fucking
Yeah.
find out.
I'm already playing Fibblethip in one of my decks, so
I know.
Dude,
Every time I see him, I just want to murder him on the spot.
I love that
you
card,
do. You,
dude.
I don't know why.
I learned how to pronounce his name so early on, and I was like, yeah,
So proud of yourself.
yeah.
I can read.
Because then you had like idiots who were like, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm like, it's Fibblethip, you idiot.
Yeah, you uncultured swan.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, Snapcaster would be sick. Gideon, I think could be played maybe.
I think Gideon's fine.
I think Gideon is fine. I do. Yeah, upon second thought.
Okay. Well, that's our 90 minutes. Good show.
Great show. I thought it was a good show.
Field of the Dead, ban that shit.
Yeah, I'm
Historic,
okay.
the power creep, too high. Bring back Gideon. Yes.
Absolutely. I agree with all those things. I think I'm totally fine. Like, I'll sleep at night if Field of the Dead gets banned.
Yeah.
I think it should be a suspension first and foremost, but like I'm not going to be like, oh, got banned. Like, I don't care.
I think
Get rid of it.
when Field of the Dead gets banned on Monday, next week's podcast is gonna be very interesting to talk about because now it's a whole new
Yes.
format. Whole new
That's true.
format, baby.
Mhm.
All right.
I'm excited for
Well,
that.
thank you everyone for watching here on Twitch and pretty soon on YouTube. Thank you for watching.
Yeah,
We
thanks, guys.
appreciate it. We'll be here every Friday. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Later, guys.